Greetings to people over yonder from here and far. It is I, Saru, in small form, here to greet you all. First of all, you know Bayonetta, right? The femme fatale, trio of high energy games, blistering combat, some fan appeal. Did you know there was a prequel? Well, that brings us to today's review. Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Legion. This prequel to the bombastic trilogy stars Cereza, Bayonetta's original game, on a quest to save her mother, told as if from a storybook to a young audience. Can this slower-paced prequel weave its tale and sit high on your shelf as the accomplished novel? Or is the story best left to the grown-ups and the kids sent home? Let's find out. So the story of the game is told as if from a storybook to a child or young audience. Cereza is a child born of a Lumen Sage and Umbran Witch. But this is a big taboo between the two clans I mentioned. So after being born, her father was banished, her mother imprisoned, with her being ostracized and raised among her fellow Umbran witches. The story is on a teenage Cereza growing up isolated from her people, basically with the aim of trying to save her mom from her captivity by obtaining the power she needs. Power that she finds she can get in a nearby forest. Very quickly though, in her adventure, faced with danger in the form of this game's enemy, the fairies, she attempts to summon a demon that inhabits a little cat plushie, and it goes from there. So the story is basically Cereza trying to save her mother, getting the power she needs to help her, but also to send the demon home, who is forced to protect her to even get home, as he literally can't exist unless he's around her. The story is more on how these two such different personalities bounce off each other, and how the two are forced to work together in this adventure, since neither can really survive out the other. Cereza is a fragile child who can't really fight, and the demon, who has the ability to fight, simply knows violence and has no empathy, and literally can't live without her. The game keeps the focus largely on its two real main characters, Cereza and Cheshire, though there are others in the plot. And I found their characters, their dynamic relationship with one another to be a well-developed one. Cereza reacts like how I imagine a teenage girl would react, even in this fantasy setting. She's naive, hopeful, wants to help where she can, she gets easily confused, scared, outright paralyzing terror, she throws tantrums, she pouts when annoyed, but yet keeps that childlike hope in her heart. Cheshire doesn't quite have a personality at first, it's all raw, this is bad, raw. And more reacts to Cereza herself. Overall, I just found him funny. Like when Cereza's all giddy and happy, he just comes in, pours water over a little bonfire, grins, she pouts, the plot carries on. So he does seem to enjoy it at first, but over time he does slowly warm up to Cereza. He looks to her and acts to her in the world. For example, when he munches a giant fruit, he soaks Cereza through completely. But later when he eats another one, he eats it more politely, and heck even gives her a little, shy high five. And during times when they rest, he'd avoid her, but later on, snuggles with her. Now as a story, it's quite a nice simple one. As I said, it's a story as if told from a book to a young audience, but it has a nice pace, some good character development, the characters were really good, both mains and sides, and yeah, I was invested with the main two from beginning to end. The gameplay of Cereza and the Lost Demon is the more interesting part, split in two. It is a slow-paced, twin-stick action game where you control each character, Cereza and Cheshire, exclusively one half of a controller, or one Joy-Con. Cereza with the left and Cheshire with the right. They each have talents only they can do in the overworld. Cereza can use her magic to grow plants, make bridges with said plants, craft items through combat, and later on restore broken objects. Cheshire can smash obstacles, use his power for traversal, like he can use his ability of fire later on to melt ice, the power of plant to grapple on things, earth to use bouncy mushrooms, and you get the idea. The whole gameplay exploration is kind of simple, honestly, and minus some scripted sequences, never gets too stressful. But due to the way the game works, you do often have to remember these are two completely independent forces. Minus any time where Cereza hauls Cheshire in his plush form, they control completely separate from one another. The world is a linear adventure mostly, with one route from beginning to end. There are short side paths with collectibles in the world, such as Inferno Fruits, Moon Pills and Wisps, lost children drained of life, to collect that do give some reason to explore, but otherwise you're pretty much on the main road at all times.
The second part of the game is combat. The enemies you fight are fairies, who are the more or less only foe, though they do come in myriad forms. You control both characters in a small arena battlefield, often in the Dark Realm variant called Tyranogs. Cereza can seal an enemy in place and use items to defend yourself or heal. Cheshire is the fighter, with a good assortment of abilities, including counters, utilizing his elemental powers, attacking and brawling. And during combat, you do have to make them meld together, like Cereza seals an enemy in place, Cheshire beats them up, and it has that nice synchronization to it. Cheshire can also utilise elemental abilities he gains later on that gives him buffs, like he can use his fire to amp damage and shoot a fireball, water to blast water torrents for ground pound, but all these actions and other abilities he uses all drain his magic meter, that if drained reduces him to a useless plush stuffed form that Cereza has to hold to restore him. Now while the enemies are sort of the same, they do keep shifting in forms, abilities and attacks. But towards the end they can feel like sponges, and I think it got a bit samey. You can upgrade both characters in their literal skill trees, improving their powers and moves. Well, moves for Cheshire anyway, in combat, and you are rewarded for somewhat an exploration. Inferno fruits and moon pills are kind of essential for the skill trees. And if you replay the Tyranogs, those arenas I mentioned before, in their time attack mode, you gain collectibles and items for finishing them quickly. Now while the twin stick setup is cool for gameplay, it can interfere when you forget where the characters are, especially in the rare, stressful situations. And the slower pace is engaging enough, but as I say, slower can sometimes mean boring, and when the camera's panned out when the characters are far apart, it can be clumsy. And with exploration, the whole optional path is fine, but it's literally run up to a point, use an ability, sometimes fight goons, and get the items. But the whole twin stick action thing can keep the thing stimulating enough, I found, and I didn't really find it boring. And what I must say separately are the boss fights in this game are really good, in their own separate arenas sometimes, and their own unique gimmicks. They really keep you engaged, and they're quite creative in how they attack you, force you to adapt, keep your eyes and skills sharp, and they are definitely the highlights. Special props mention go to a boss I'll just call the Jabberwock and the final scene. That's all you're getting. Now as for how the game looks, it looks really good. It's not going to win any graphical marvels, but it's good. The game presents itself as a fairy tale, and the world just looks something like that, straight off a fantasy story. It has soft but vibrant watercolours, the plants look like they're almost engulfing but also illuminate, they have dark distorted realms, the magical tones of the forest, and there are different locales in the whole area giving it different themes, like an abandoned factory, a little play park, a water well, a dam, all that. The cutscenes are almost like animated stills, with very expressive pencil-like artwork of the characters, as if they are literally pictures. The voice work is also remarkably good, and rather charming too. The narrator keeps the voice going, voicing Cheshire in her childish tone of voice like a parent does to their child, like that. Cereza an absolute delight of a character. I was worried she was going to cross as money as children characters do, but nope, she was funny and a delight to watch, and the other characters voice their part well. And the one thing cannot diss is the music. My buggering god, the music. The game has this orchestral musical score, and I could not get over how good it was. It really fitted the slower pace, emphasised the fantasy of the world, the dimness of the Dark Realms I mentioned before, the mood of the story or the characters, and it truly picks up and swells into this orchestral symphony that really pumped me up in battle. I admit I am a sucker for orchestral music, but in the words of SpongeBob, I need it! Yeah, that, pretty much. This story is one that should be shared to everyone just to listen to the music. Now, my final thoughts is this. Now, do you need to have played Bayonetta before this? No. Minus some nods in the final chapter and the extra side story, which is unlocked in story completion, you can go into this blind. If anything, playing the Bayo trilogy just helps you appreciate the references a bit more. In fact, you could even enjoy Bayonetta by this game, and if you enjoy Cereza, then play the Bayonetta. It makes it more of an accompanying piece than anything else.
Overall, Cereza and the Lost Demon is a true delight of a gem. Everything about its concept and pace, when compared to its Bayonetta trilogy, shouldn't work, but yet it does in pretty much every sense. The story is slower paced, but has nicely written characters, pleasant voice acting across the board. The game looks nice, sounds great, the gameplay is unique, and though a bit simple or samey, especially towards the end, is very stimulating to play, with excellent music and just a good overall twin-stick control scheme. While as fans of Bayonetta, this complete change of a game can be confusing. Give it a chance if you've never heard of Bayo, still play it, and you'll enjoy it. Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and Lost Demon earns a solid 9 out of 10. So ends my first review. I can't be sure how I did, so please let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you enjoy my content. Then now, to sign you off, here's a song. Have a good day, everyone.
Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words,